Hi, and welcome to ICS Arabia podcast. I have a special guest today, Scott Reynolds. He's the ISA president. Hi, Scott.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Sure, you're welcome. So, why don't you tell us about yourself and how you got started as an engineer and in OT security as well?
Sure, yeah. I started my career. So I guess I should start. I am Scott Reynolds. So I'm the ISA Society president, and during my day job, I'm currently senior security manager for Johns Manville. So it's a company that makes insulation, is probably what we're most known for. And right now, I work on the IT side of cybersecurity and the OT networks. But really, my relationship started as a controls engineer with a degree in electrical engineering technology and working on water, wastewater treatment plants and supporting kind of starting up and creating new control systems for those plants. And really, my relationship with IT started there because I was really the engineer who would talk to the IT people. And then now I'm much more of the IT person who talks to the engineers. So it's kind of the role of translator is something I've been doing for a while now, both on kind of just the IT infrastructure and OT infrastructure side and on the cybersecurity side as well.
All right. So, you did both roles, IT and OT.
That's right. That's right.
You understand the languages for both.
I try to, or at least I fake it very well.
And did that work? I mean, did you manage to play the mediator?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the concerns on the OT side, when IT comes in, they're going to come in and do it the IT way, which doesn't actually work very often with the OT infrastructure, especially if you think about trying to patch stuff constantly or trying to continue to put updates on things that can't be updated. So in the OT world, things take a lot longer to do and cost a lot more money to upgrade. Um, and so it's really trying to articulate the needs of meeting the requirements of remote access, for example, from the IT space to help them make it so that people can get into the OT space in a secure way, and making sure that both all those security things are being done, but also you're able to still do your job in a way that's functional from the OT space. So there's a lot of relationships there. So that was kind of my OT perspective. From the IT perspective now, really where the relationships are built are finding where the OT people aren't experts and they struggle. So if you think about the IT functions in the OT space, there's a lot of those, and trying to make those and trying to be helpful in that side from the IT perspective is really how you succeed. So one example is backups. So a lot of engineers come into things assuming that having redundancy and having redundant systems is enough for making sure that if something goes wrong, you can deal with that and address it. But if you have a ransomware event, then generally your primary system and your backup system both get infected with ransomware. So you need to make sure that you actually have true backups of those systems that can't be infected with ransomware, so you can recover those systems. So it's really opportunities to educate both sides on kind of how the IT side can help empower OT people to be more successful and have more resilient systems without having that negative impact IT sometimes has by trying to make OT an IT system.
Mhm. So, I mean, today I would like to talk about the IT OT convergence. I mean, it's become like a buzzword in industrial conferences. I mean, industrial OT conferences like convergence. What does it really mean from your point of view?
So my I guess altruistic or best case scenario of what it means is it's IT and OT working together to kind of leverage the best of both sides to make systems work more reliably, get more data, and be able to manipulate that data in ways that are helpful to both the business and engineers. The example I have is if you think about where that weird dividing line normally is between IT and OT, I think of manufacturing execution systems. So manufacturing execution systems are really where you're saying, hey, manufacturing, here's what I want you to make. And then the manufacturing system says, here's what I made. Here's the quality of what I made. Here's all the data around what I made. And when I made this, I used this recipe and all these things. So it's really that that relationship between IT and OT that makes that work. And how does that? And how do you do that? That requires both engineers kind of helping define what the parameters are, what success looks like from an engineering standpoint, and then making sure that from the IT side, making sure all those systems interact appropriately and in a secure way, obviously, and they're able to get the right data and make it make the most sense. So if you're doing it right, you're kind of taking all those IT infrastructure, the data from the business side, and all the OT data and all the set points and calibrations that align with kind of making sure that you have the right batch, to make sure that you have the right recipes, making sure you're actually making what is actually needed. And at the same time, when you're changing from one product to another, making sure that it actually makes sense from an engineering side, so that the changeover is actually the most effective changeover. So if you go from part A to part B, that's a lot easier than going from part A to part F. So saying, okay, maybe it makes sense from what you want to deliver goes from part A to part F, but making the shorter changeover time might make sense to part A to part B. So having those relationships between the business, IT, and OT to create a truly cohesive kind of that big data viewpoint will really work well. Where it goes wrong is when you don't have those agreements and you don't have kind of the expectations set up front. For example, if IT starts doing stuff and decides this is the solution, and they're focused more on just the business side and not considering the manufacturing process, not considering the OT implications of what you're doing, then it's not going to work, and you're not going to be successful, and you're probably going to make things worse and not better. So at the end of the day, it's a high understanding of what is expected and who's accountable and responsible for what, but also really making sure that the people who are responsible for the right things for where their skills are, and really taking kind of the best of both worlds is where you end up with that IT/OT convergence as a success story, as opposed to a cautionary tale.
Okay, I mean, I've seen some organizations that prefer the OT guys. I mean, the OT department, like the engineers, they prefer that they learn cybersecurity themselves and they do it themselves rather than having IT guy study OT best practices and apply it to them. I've seen both sides, and I've seen sometimes the IT people, they interfere. So, from your experience, what are the pros and cons? I mean, of those two approaches?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and if you were going to ask me which one's better, it would be the generic consulting area answer of it depends. But I'm sorry, there's a siren going by me right now. But the pros are from the engineering side. If you really do have a completely separate organization that can be dedicated to cybersecurity in the OT space, that's awesome. Then you can actually have that group do that, run it manage it, have an OT security operations center, have a whole set of engineering experts around OT cybersecurity. And with unlimited resources, that is a great way of doing it. As long as, again, you have that clear delineation between where the OT security team manages these parts, and then the IT security team manages this part over here. And here's the line. And that line really needs to be well defined, not only in who owns what, but what is actually talking between those two groups. Because wherever that line is, there's going to be opportunities for misses. Because once you have this might be oh, I thought IT was dealing with this, or oh, I thought OT was dealing with that. From kind of a converged or mixed cybersecurity infrastructure or cybersecurity group that manages both the IT and OT, it's allowing people to say, here's who owns cybersecurity risk, and they're the ones who can kind of look at both the OT risk and IT risk, and then that line isn't as and then they own that line too between IT and OT, and they can make sure that everything's covered. So it's really then the chief information security officer can oversee the overall risk posture and cybersecurity framework between the two systems. The downside of that is that you do need to make sure that you do have people who are able to effectively communicate and have solid relationships, both with the IT side and with the OT side. And that takes work. Understanding the needs, expectations, and different cybersecurity concerns on both the IT and OT side is also a big ask. So that's kind of the pro of separating it, is that you kind of have the expertise in the two areas separated out. So that's kind of the big picture. But at the end of the day, you do need at the end of the day, I'll just say simply, it doesn't matter as long as someone's accountable and responsible for cybersecurity on the OT side, and someone's accountable and responsible for the cybersecurity on the IT side. And you have those communication to make sure that you don't have that gap when you connect the two systems together. So that's it depends, but at the end of the day, someone needs to own it. It could be two people who own it, or it could be one person who owns it, but it needs to be owned. And overall, the constant conversation that you hear a lot is that when it comes to migrating to a more broad understanding of risk and cybersecurity risk, that is really where the opportunities are for the board to actually understand where the risks are and where their risk tolerance is. And if you have one person talking to the board about those, then you can be consistent in your messaging to understand that here's really where we should be prioritizing in the OT space, and starting to increase our security posture in the OT space.
Nice. So let's talk about ISA a little bit. You are the ISA president right now, and how does someone become president? I mean, I'm interested.
Sure. So I guess generally, so broad, starting from where you apply to be president, you get nominated, and then you fill out a form, and then if you are deemed qualified by the nominating committee, then you get on the ballot to be president. And then if you are elected by the ISA members, then you become, it's a 4-year term. So you become president-elect, and then you become president, and then you become past president. But that's the process. But how I got here was more on, I think how most people start is in my local section. So in the United States, I'm in the Denver section. And in my local section, I started by volunteering to present on a topic. And then from there, they said, hey, we need a secretary for our Denver section. I said, okay, I can do that. And then I went to a international meeting, and they said, oh, we could really use a a district chair. And I said, oh, I could do that. So a district chair is someone who supports a bunch of sections in a region, and kind of helps that liaison role between the sections and the society as a whole. So I started going down that path, and then I became treasurer of the society. I became a board member of the society, and now I'm here. So the short answer is someone asked me to volunteer to present, and now I'm society president. Yeah, so I guess I will say, if anyone hasn't told you that you should present at your local section, I'm asking you to present at your local section. So please reach out to your section leadership and tell them what you're passionate about so that you can present.
I see. I mean, what does the president normally do? I mean, what's his role? I mean,
sure. So beyond doing things like this, where I'm really just talking about the society and doing things like this, I also help set the strategy for the society, and I lead the executive board. So the executive board, we meet quarterly, and I chair those meetings and set up the agenda and things like that. And then I present the state of the society, and kind of any new roll up that we're doing internally or externally. I try to communicate that as effectively as possible. As you'll see, as my theme is with both my day job and with ISA president, over communication is what success is.
Yeah, I mean, do you have to do it like every day, or it's like volunteering, right? It's
Yeah, so the president is a volunteer role. We have an executive director and CEO who actually manage the day-to-day operations of the society, and she's also on the executive board. For my role, I kind of oversee the governance of the society, and it's a volunteer position, just like all the other board roles are, besides the CEO. And I'd say I put in, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 hours a week to this, to the role of ISA president. And to be honest, it's you put in what you have time to put in. Some people put in a lot more time, some people put in less time, and it's really just how much you end up having to do, or how many things are going on, and how many things that you need to be engaged in, either as the president or as kind of that liaison to different areas.
all right. So, I mean, do you go to OT conferences? I mean, do ISA people, members go? I mean, the board, do they visit conferences like the one in Singapore just happened, for example?
So sometimes we have, we usually place people who, we usually get people to attend events outside of ISA events, based on their expertise and where they're subject matter experts, where they're going to provide value to those events. So we make sure that if there are opportunities that ISA is asked to go to, that we have the right people there. I'm an expert in certain areas, but certainly not an expert in most areas. So me going would be would have the president going, but also might not be the best person to talk on those things. ISA does have 2 events that we put on ourselves, and a lot of the board leadership goes to both of those. One, we have kind of our the one coming up in October is our annual conference and exhibit and conference and expo. And during that, we also have board meetings, state of the society, things like that. So all the board attends that one. And then our other big event that we have is our OT Cybersecurity Summit, which this year was in Belgium, and next year it's in Prague. And it's been in Europe for the past few years. And that's really more geared towards cybersecurity and threat intelligence, IIoT associated with kind of the security of those things and supply chain security, and providing value a lot of value, mostly right now in the European market, because they have, if you don't know, they have a lot of regulation and a lot of change going on right now. So trying to make sure that we're informing people how both cybersecurity is changing and how ISA and ISA IEC 62443 series of standards can be leveraged to meet those cybersecurity requirements that are coming out of different regulations from the European Union.
Yeah, okay. I mean, have you followed the recent discussions on LinkedIn about the security levels? Again, they were talking about the ISA security levels standard, and they were like suggesting maybe if the security levels are tied to the countermeasures, like so if you say security level 4 means you have to do this and that, and the level of the attacker, of course, like you mentioned. So what do you think of this discussion? I mean, I don't know if you followed it or not. It just happened last week. I mean,
yeah, no, I haven't been following it, but and I haven't been on LinkedIn as much as I should, so I'm kind of failing at my role right now. But I always get concerned when standards get more prescriptive in things like security levels, because what happens is if you think about ISO 27001, there's it's really about in the IT world, that's a common standard we use for information security, and it's really about making sure that you're aware of the risks and what risks you're accepting, and if you're doing all the things to make sure that you're validating what you say you're doing, you're actually doing. So when you get to security levels, if you're too prescriptive on that, then you get to here's the security things that you're saying that you're doing, and you're saying that you must conform to kind of a global standard as opposed to what your business risk is. So that risk tolerance and what those security levels are might make sense for certain industries and certain highly regulated industries. But then when you get into manufacturing or building systems, those security level definitions might not make sense anymore. So then what you're doing is you're over-prescribing risk tolerances by defining the security levels. Without going into the details of understanding what the conversation was, that would be my concern about doing that.
all right. Okay, this makes sense. What about the buildings? I mean, the smart buildings and securing buildings like the HVAC systems. Does the ISA 62443, I mean, take consideration of this area, this infrastructure? Or...
Yes, so I do know that we do have a relationship with another building systems group, and we've actually created a horizontal alignment between making sure that our standards can be used and what the best practices are for building systems, and leveraging 62443 to kind of have that conversation. So when I think of standards from my standpoint, I always think of it as having a common language, right? So if you can have that common language of that standard, then you can, it's easier to discuss with both kind of building systems, for example, or anyone else. Once you do that and you're leveraging a standard, you can say, are you aligned to meet this expectation? And then from that expectation of kind of the risk assessments defined in 2-1, we can then talk about how we're meeting those or not meeting those, or what level of security we're setting and things like that. So building systems is an example where we are doing that, and we have strong alignment with the building systems industry to provide that value, where we can also have that language of ISA IEC 62443.
Okay. What about your training? I mean, the courses. Some people, because they don't have a sponsorship, they complain that it's a bit costly, especially if you want to take it to the expert level. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I get that there are some hurdles for paying for training, and there's different levels of training, and there's different costs associated with that. I would say generally with ISA training, you'll see if you compare us to other training and certification bodies where if you compare us to SANS, we're significantly cheaper, but if you compare us to other groups, you'll see that we're priced a little bit more expensive. So when it comes to training there and not having a sponsor, I get frustrated with that a little because that means that your organization is not supporting you in the way that you should be supported. If you are not reaching out to your organization and making sure that you are able to become a member of a community member of your peers, especially if you're one of two people who have your role, if you don't have a outside community of peers, who do you ask those questions to? So ISA has ISA Connect forums, for example, and that's where you can ask questions and have a dialogue with people who are in kind of where your specialty is, whether that's cybersecurity or IoT, any of the things that you could think about. Really having those peers who can talk to you about batch management, MES systems, things like that. With training, and then also if they're not willing to invest in you and make sure that you can continue to provide value to them, then that's an issue. Then that means then I question if they're really if they're not willing to invest in you, then are you in the right position? Are you in the right role? And do they truly care about the thing that you think that you need to invest in so that you can provide that value? The other side of this is that I know that engineers have a tendency to not be able to articulate that in a way that is as effective as it could be. So I encourage people who have not asked and have not positioned it and considered kind of, here's the business impact to me taking this training. And here's how I can provide more value to our company if I do this training. Having those conversations is, I know I find it awkward, but and I know others do too, and it's a hard conversation to have. But if you want to find a sponsor, the way to do it is to ask in a way that you can show that you're going to provide value back to the company. And I think that's very important. So if you rely heavily on outside contractors for your company to do cybersecurity and things like that, you still want someone inside your company to validate what they're doing is actually providing the right value, and they're not, just blowing smoke, and actually doing what they say they're doing. And the way you validate that is getting the training to understand what success looks like, what a successful program would look like, and making sure that they're doing what you'd expect them to do, and also getting the right language into contracts and things like that. So having someone who knows those things and is within the company provides a huge amount of value to the organization. And I hope that people who are listening to this are thinking about not just like what's in it for me as a person getting the training, but what's in it for my company so that I can ask for that funding for that training.
Oh, okay. What about if somebody is familiar and knowledgeable about the ISA standard and he wants just to do the exam straight away? Will he have to pay for the whole cost, or there's a separate prices?
Yeah, so since these are certificates and not certifications, the way certificates work at ISA is that you validate that you took the training and that you then validate that you were competent in the skill set by taking the test. So you do need both those things to get the certificate. for these. There are other things. So there's the certified automation professional and the control systems, the certified control systems technician exams, which are actually certifications. And those certifications do not require a class or taking material beforehand. So instead, what those look at is that you apply to take the certification based on your experience rather than making sure that you took the training. So it's two separate things. For 62443, for example, all those require validation that you took the training.
Oh, I see. Okay. What about the sections? You spoke about the sections in each area and maybe in each country. I mean, my friend just told me there is a section in Kuwait. So, I mean, how do you cooperate normally with sections, especially outside USA? How do you support them?
Yeah. So ISA has two different things. So I guess ISA as a whole, we have sections, and the sections are what's called components of the society. So the idea is that they should be providing value to the local area for the members of the society in that area. So to become a member of the section, the only way you do that is you become a member of the society. So you get all the benefits of being a member of the society, and you get the added benefit of having a local section if you have one. And what ISA does is that a portion of the membership fee goes to the section, and that helps fund the section operations to some extent, but barely. So they have to find other streams of revenue and things like that. But the society continues to provide and can help you find subject matter experts to present to your section. The society can help you with marketing material, or they can help you get training into your local area and work with you on that. And then if you are a section, you can also get a portion of the training fees given to your section. So there's a revenue sharing agreement there that you can also work on. So there's a lot that can go on with a section and providing value to the section and making sure that the section can then provide value to the automation community in the area that they represent. We are an international society, so that's true whether you're in Kuwait or if you're in Denver, Colorado, like I am.
Okay. So where do you see ISA is going, and what's the vision? I mean, in the future, what plans do you have?
So I mean, I see a lot of ISA continuing to grow in where our strength is. So we're a standard development organization. Our foundation and pretty much everything we do is based in standards. So we're continuing to not only invest in our standards, but continue to grow our standards and promote our standards like 62443, which we talked about today, but also find where the next thing is. So what is that next thing that we need to figure out an opportunity to not just say, here's where our standards can be applied to this, but also we don't have a standard here, and there's an opportunity for alignment among the industry, and we should invest in helping align the industry in that area. One example, I think 6 years ago, we started a SCADA standard, ISA 112, which is working on their first rollout. And the reason is we discovered there was an opportunity where it said, okay, we really do need to find for this group and this group, they're saying we really need to understand what we mean when we say SCADA. And how do we find alignment and understand the definitions so that we can all talk that same language, like I talked about before. So when you are able to talk that same language, it creates those shortcuts. So it's finding those opportunities. Also from there, once we do develop standards, we also want to invest in training and making sure that we can provide value and train against those standards to help that succeed. And also conformity assessments. So we have those conformity assessments for wireless 100, for and also for conformity assessments against devices and systems for cybersecurity systems. So one thing we rolled out this year was really around the system of like a production line or a manufacturing process, and now being able to assess that against ISA 62443. And we just started that this year, and I hope to see a lot of opportunities there, because what that's doing is then saying, I want to conform against, make sure that what we're doing is what we say we're doing. And again, on the IT side, we have a lot of things that already do that, right? So we have ISO 27001 is an example of that. SOC 2 and SOC 1 reports, things like that. So that's all on the IT side. We have a lot of examples of that. On the OT side, we have fewer examples of that. So leveraging 62443 and assessing against that, like we do with ISO on the corporate side, is a huge opportunity to, again, mature your cybersecurity assessment, your cybersecurity program as an end user of a production line or manufacturing line or oil and gas. I guess it's also producing, or whatever phase of the systems you're using, and validating that against a third-party conformity it's very helpful. It shows you, okay, here's where the opportunities are for improvement, and it's not just because I think this might be better. It's because of the conformity against what we said our risk tolerance would be versus what it actually is. And then from there, we also, the society is working on some other things too. We have some things on intellectual property where we just want to make sure that ISA is getting credit for ISA's stuff. So we're working a little bit on that. And then again, kind of that awareness. So making sure everyone is aware that ISA is here to provide value, and we are the best at certain things, including cybersecurity frameworks and leveraging things like safety systems, MES systems, IIoT, and kind of how do we deal with all the different components of IIoT and that IT-OT convergence and things like that. We're here to provide value. We think we have the best automation community to provide that value. So we want to promote that and make sure that our members are shown as kind of, here's why we have our members who are the experts, and they are the subject matter experts, and they can provide value to you. And so a lot of awareness and trying to make people more aware of really how kind of amazing not only our standards are, but our members are as well.
Okay, so talking about the future, what about AI? I mean, I know that you have an AI chat. What's his name?
Mimo. Yep.
Mimo. So what's your plan in AI and its effect on OT and industry? Do you have like coming standards on that, or?
So I guess the thing I like to remind people is that we've been doing machine learning in the OT space forever, and we've been doing kind of fuzzy logic and all the things that kind of are the back end of what AI is for 30 years now. I mean, I feel like we're really good at it. We have standards around some of that, but what the thing that AI is doing, and the thing that kind of the new AI is doing, is that now people, when I talk to like a CEO or kind of a board, they know what I'm talking about when I talk about AI. And I can say, oh, well, this is really just AI for this specific use case, and we're doing this. AI overall right now has a lot of fluff to it, and it doesn't really have a huge, clear meaning. Going back to that IT/OT convergence, if you don't have a clear meaning, then it can just have a lot of fluff to it and doesn't really provide value except marketing speak. A lot of things people were already doing, they just said, oh yeah, we're doing AI. And it's like, right, but you're not doing anything new. You're just doing the same thing before. You just decided to label it AI. So when it comes to that stuff, I think it's just worth noting that we've been doing this for a while. When it comes to AI for Mimo, what Mimo's doing is it's an LLM or it's a learning language model that is focused on ISA content and ISA standards. So it allows you to go in there and ask it questions around standards, around kind of the best practices in the society or from the automation community, and provides you feedback from those things, and then it provides references of where you can get that information from. So it's kind of giving you that starting point, and then says, okay, and then you can go to the standard to really get into the weeds. If you're a member of the society, it gets you a lot more information than if you are not a member. So I suggest, if you haven't tried Mimo, try it out at isa.org/MIMO and look at what it can do. And if you want to get even deeper and actually get into the standards and things like that, getting to view standards is one of the features of ISA membership. So you can view those, but also Mimo then has access to more information and can provide you that additional information as well. So that's very powerful. Going back to what ISA is doing from a standards standpoint, I don't think there's anything that really makes sense for ISA to write currently for AI. But I think the question is how can ISA's current standards inform how AI is leveraged in the OT space? How can we do it in a safe way? How do we still have our safety systems there and have this AI component? How do we still have all this cybersecurity infrastructure in place, but still leverage some of the features of AI? A lot of the way that works is by doing read-only access, and then AI can kind of inform engineers on what you might want to change. But also, if you do machine learning and kind of modeling and things like that, that already exists. We do that, and you can kind of make changes based on that as long as you have the safety parameters set in place. So there's a lot of, that was my AI in 5 minutes, but there's a lot of pieces there. But overall, the big story is that we've been doing AI for a long time. We've just been calling it different things, and now it's a lot of marketing speak. And the biggest advantage is that now when we talk about these things, it's less scary to kind of the board when you talk to the board, because they now kind of know more about what it is, and they kind of understand it from that higher level.
Okay. What about the robots? Does the standard include anything about the robots or nothing?
So I don't know if we have specific standards. I'm not an expert on all the standards, so I apologize. But generally speaking, we do have things that apply directly to autonomous robots. Wireless 100 is how you do a secure and resilient wireless infrastructure with robots. So you can use that wireless architecture. And then also we have the cybersecurity systems, which talk about how you can do that in a secure way and what you should look at for cybersecurity. And then also we have safety systems. At the end of the day, you have constraints around these systems that need to make sure that human safety and safety of not causing an accident or crashing into something doesn't happen. So all those safety systems align perfectly with our safety ISA 84 standards that we have as well. So again, just because we don't have a specific standard, and maybe we do, and I apologize if we do for the standards professionals that are out there, but we do have standards that obviously apply directly to that. And if you are always curious about how does this standard apply to this specific industry or this specific system. Again, going back to isa.org/MIMO and asking MIMO is a great way to do it. And MIMO will at least get you to the right standards and possibly get you in a discussion that's happening in our forums to help kind of get you to the right subject matter experts to help you have those conversations.
Okay. So, I mean, if somebody depends on Mimo, can he like maybe pass the exam or implement the standard without reading? Can he do that just by depending on Mimo?
Well, luckily the exams are proctored, so I don't think you can just ask Mimo and get to all the answers. But Mimo does have a lot of the answers that are informing the exam questions, and kind of, since it's informed from the standards, and all the certifications and the exams are also informed from the standards. As you go through and study and you get stuck on a question and you need more information to understand why an answer was the way it was, I'd start by asking Mimo. And if Mimo doesn't know, you could also ask your question from the ISA forums again. And the forums, you can actually get to those experts to actually tell you why is this the way it is? Why would this be the answer?
Okay.
So
you're still training Mimo. You're still training Mimo and getting him better, or
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And Mimo is learning every day as we add more content from. As we create more technical content, Mimo is being informed by the new technical content, whether that's through publications, papers, books, standards, just position papers, all the different ways that we communicate and create content as a society are ways that Mimo gets informed.
If somebody is a beginner, total beginner, no hands-on experience in OT security, would you recommend him to take the certifications or your training, or is it better for somebody to get some experience and then take it? What's your for a beginner? Yeah.
Right. So it depends, I guess. I'm gonna give my it depends answer for everything, I guess. But generally speaking, the first cybersecurity training that we have, which I think is called IC32, is really meant to give you a solid foundation and kind of starts you with what the terminology is, what kind of the high level things are. So I think that would get you started if you started with that class and that certificate. And then from there, that would help you jumpstart in understanding cybersecurity. From there, I might wait a little while and get comfortable and understand kind of the industry and where your specific use cases are before you took additional training. But if you learn by training, then certainly continue down the certificate path. But I learned by doing, and then by doing the training, it's kind of enforcing what I did, and I can kind of relay it back to what I already did, and that's much more helpful to me. And I find training much more helpful if I can kind of be informed by things that I've already done. So that's kind of so that would be, if I were to do it myself, I would start with that IC32 and work through that and get that, so that I have kind of that baseline terminology, and then I'd start to work in it a little bit before I went further and took more training.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, because too much theory maybe, or too much knowledge, maybe it could, and without experience, it could be overwhelming maybe sometimes, or too much theoretical. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and the other trainings are much more specific to specific areas. So one example is just for creating a risk assessment program around the standard. So if you plan on rolling out a program like that, either as a consultant or an end user, or even as an integrator who's trying to understand how they fit into this assessment, then maybe that's the class that they take. So be specific, and kind of, if you're going to take training, make sure you're going to use it right away is the other side of that. So yeah.
Do you have to take them in order? I mean, the trainings. Can you jump, or it has to be in order?
I believe that the first one you have to take is that fundamental one, and then after that you can take any training in any order, because they're much more specific to different parts of the cybersecurity program. So take that again. That fundamental one is key, and then as you start getting involved in, or your company's growing in the program, and you're looking at how you would be impacted by the different training. If you're rolling something out, or if you're starting to maintain systems and things like that, then take the appropriate training that aligns with that. But yeah, don't just, I mean, unless you're doing it for the purpose of credibility, for getting that expert certification, by all means, go through the training and get that as quickly as possible if that's something you're trying to achieve. But at the same time, it's a lot easier to get that if you are able to understand how it applies to what you're doing, and how it aligns to where your opportunities are. So I always think the best and most useful point of certification or certificates is making sure, or training in general for that matter, even if there's no certificate involved. Make sure you have a background enough that you can actually take the training and understand how it applies to you and how you can apply it in your work. Otherwise, it's somewhat of a waste of time.
So what about the title expert? I mean, why did you choose the word expert? Is he really an expert, or is just, could you, about the course?
So really the term expert is really just saying that you've completed all the certificates, and you've taken all the exams associated with it. And so and that's the term that we use both for our safety program and our cybersecurity program. Really, it shows that you have put in the time, commitment, and effort to understand and actually sit down and work through all this material to understand it, so that you can call yourself an expert, essentially, from this certification. Expert's just a term. I mean, I always get stressed out if anyone calls me an expert in anything. So yes, I have an expert certification, expert certificate rather, but I wouldn't call myself a full expert in cybersecurity. I definitely can go in the weeds in certain areas, but there's other areas where I am definitely going to call a friend and talk to someone else who knows a lot more about this certain area than I do. So yeah.
Got it. Thank you, Scott, for joining us. Really, it's been a pleasure. Any last word?
First of all, thank you for having me. This has been a blast. And I will say, if you are not a member of ISA yet, I strongly encourage you to join ISA, isa.org/join. And if you are a member of ISA, you should volunteer. And there's a big volunteer campaign going on right now. So go to connect.isa.org, and right on the top, it tells you how you can volunteer and get involved. And the last thing is, if no one has told you to join, you should join. And if you're already a member and no one has told you to volunteer, I'm telling you should volunteer, and please be a part of this great automation community and give an opportunity to give back. So thank you again, and I really appreciate everything.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the episode. See you later.